Hello and welcome to Hotels Magazine's video series. I am David Eisen. I am editor-in-chief of Hotels Magazine, and I'm excited to be joined today by Ben Erwin, president and CEO of Encore. Encore is a global leader in event production that supports meeting and event professionals with event technology and production. Headquartered in Chicago, they operate in 23 countries across North America, Europe, the Middle East, Australia, and Asia Pacific. So Ben, great to be joined by you. I wanted to say, listen, it's great to be talking about events because I think if the last few years taught us anything, it's that people really want to be together, right? They want to experience things together. And that's really what events do, and that's what Encore does. So let me jump into my first question for you. Encore, you guys are a global event production company. What does that exactly mean, right? And how do you partner with hotels and other venues to ensure success?
Yeah. Well, first, David, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Always excited to talk about what's happening in meetings and events. Certainly an incredible part of really any hotel's book of business, but I think, in general, kind of a bigger part of our economy. I do think, as you had said, like there is this rallying to real life experiences. We see it in our personal and professional lives on a personal basis. You're seeing it in demand for sports and music, festivals, travel, all of these things that we want to kind of experience off of our, devices. And in our professional lives, the same thing's happening in terms of, organizations wanting to get communities together. And so it has been great to see just all of the energy and enthusiasm behind events kind of play out over the last couple of years, and I think 2026 is going to be a great year for meetings and events. Encore's role is quite simply to bring the best talent and the best service to our venue partners in serving the customers that walk through their front door. And so we do big events, small events. We do events, as you said, all around the world. And again, we're working for our venue partners, our hotels customers, to produce the great events that are happening in boardrooms, ballrooms, outside lawn spaces, in all of these venues. We did 400,000 events last year. So the talent
Wow.
that Encore has and the partners that we have, we're certainly seeing more of it than anyone else in the world.
That's a lot of events. And by the way, you had me at sports. We're actually shooting this video during March Madness, so it's like the perfect time for everyone to kind of get together and rally around whatever team that you're rooting for.
Yeah, it March Madness, and then you get the Masters commercials during the
Yeah,
commercial break, and I'm like, ooh, I can't
best
wait
time
for
of
that.
year.
It is a good
Best
time
time
of
of
year.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So let's talk about kind of like trends. I mean, everything changes, trends change in the event world. How has or does Encore's kind of focus and capability shift in this kind of fluid event environment? And there's also always talk about this FOMO effect, fear of missing out. Maybe how does that all kind of like conspire together?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, some of the bigger trends that we're seeing is just around, kind of the size and investment into events in terms of their importance to their organization. So if I look at our business and just the makeup of events that we're supporting, you are seeing organizations invest more in what I would call kind of medium and large events, where they're using it as a tentpole moment to get their community together. Maybe because they're not seeing their workforce the same because of remote work and hybrid work. Maybe it's more digital interactions with customers, and so you actually want to create trust and authenticity. And so you're seeing more investment into events being an important part of organizations' commercial strategies in internal, kind of community strategies. And so what that has done is allowed the event marketer, I believe, to play a more strategic role in their businesses. So gone are the days of, maybe simple, leadership meetings where you sat in a dark room and listened to an endless parade of speakers on stage, or you'd go to a conference and just kind of have content kind of thrown at you. Like, we can get content different ways. And so what events are around now is like, how do we create connection, right? So how am I doing event design, programming, and really just the production to create that connection? The second trend is around, how do I bring the local community into the event? So like, great that we're in these wonderful hotels, we're in these beautiful ballrooms, but how do we have that local authenticity and flavor of the space we're in? You're seeing it in hotels where they're activating more of their outdoor spaces, where you can get a sense of just the beauty and place that you're in. You're bringing in outside, vendors, local speakers to get a sense of where you find yourselves. And I think the last one that I would talk to in terms of just that trend is around, how do you create more immersive experiences where like you're wanting that emotional connection with the attendee. And we're competing right now, like we're competing with everybody who has, phones in their hands. And so kind of the investment in more of that immersive technologies that we're seeing is also a trend. All of that, I think, puts a priority on like people are willing to spend, they want great service. So how do you make sure that you're delivering, at that level that, justifies the investment our customers are making, but also delivers the impact that they're looking for in terms of what the event's purpose is about.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. From my experience, I mean, in the hotel industry, I go to a lot of events, and it's always great to go to an event where, like you said, it is immersive, and to have those outside elements about the community wherever you are. Because let's be honest, there's nothing, when you go to an event and you're sitting in a dark room all day with no windows, that can be a little. That's when people start bringing out their phones and start looking at their phones and doing all that. So it's great to have a real experience where there's beyond because let's be honest, people go to events, yeah, they want to learn about what's new. They really want to network. They want and doing that in an immersive kind of context really adds to that flavor, I think.
Yeah, and it's look, it's I love it because our customer, we think about the meeting planner and how we're serving them, and their role is becoming more strategic. If you think about it in terms of the organization's commercial strategy, marketers are prioritizing offline brand engagement. So event marketers becoming more strategic for their organization. If you think about companies competing on culture, right? How do you attract talent, retain talent? Events are a big part of that. And so again, planners becoming more strategic around, kind of organizations, culture and connection and engagement. And so I think it's exciting for our planners to be, elevated in terms of the role they're playing. And certain organizations are putting dollars behind investing in that. Now, it means there's more expected of them. It probably makes their life a little more stressful. It probably makes their days a little busier. And so I think our ability to help them with this, hey, how do we share ideas we're seeing taking place? How do we, share, new innovations that they can take advantage of, make their life a little simpler, obviously deliver at a level that makes them look like all stars inside their own organizations.
Yeah, great responsibility there. So, I always like asking this question because, I'm older. I remember kind of back in the day in like middle school, high school, just the kind of the AV stack, audio visual. It was like you had the TV and they put it in there, they roll it in there, turn it on, that was it. So things have changed, obviously. But I do think, some might think, event production, that they might just think, hey, it's those guys in the back of the auditorium with the big wall that ensure that like, the sound is good, lighting goes off without a hitch. But you guys, I mean, Encore is much more than just an AV club, right? You're a full service kind of production company. So like, talk us through that distinction and that evolution there.
Yeah, look, I think like many things, you're right. Like the technology has evolved and it's only moving one direction. It's getting more complicated. It's getting more powerful. But I think the talent that you need to put against it, obviously, has got to continue to scale as well. And so, if I think about our own company's evolution, and it comes down to even just us rebranding all of our global brands to Encore coming out of the pandemic, it is around just being a more strategic partner that, look, the reality is we're going to do a lot of small and simpler events for customers, but the growth is happening at the more technologically complicated end of the event spectrum. And candidly, what technology can do today gives event planners a whole lot more opportunity to create really impactful experiences. And so, this idea of just, the in-house AV team being there for the small, simple meetings is no longer reality. Yes, you need to do that, but I think it's incredibly important for, certainly any hotel, but I would argue where we've been investing, disproportionately in Encore's growth has been how can you support those, larger, more complicated high-end productions where it's not just around, simple screens and microphones. You're talking about concert-worthy sound systems now. You're talking about 100 feet LED walls that are creating really immersive experiences, moving lights, like all the complexity. When you go to your next big event, look up in the ceiling of the ballroom and look at all of the tech that's being held there. There's a lot of know-how in doing that. There's a lot around health and safety as well. Like, how do you do that safely at scale? And so those are all things where, like, yes, we're still doing some of the maybe more traditional AV work that you would have thought of Encore supporting a decade ago. The reality is a lot more of the events today are true productions, and you need to make sure that you've got the technical know-how, technology, and candidly just the scale. This is fast paced. Like, these are nights and weekends. You're turning rooms overnight. There's artistry in this, and I think Encore has certainly been kind of leading that charge, and I think certainly adding value to our hotel partners as a result. But it's also where we're seeing growth with our customers. They're looking at Encore as being more credible, not just in the execution of some of the simpler things, but their biggest moments. How do they have Encore in the room producing them? And the last two things I'd add, and then I'll be quiet. Like, you think about the opportunity to help with content and creative and theming. Like, gone are the days with, like, boring, wordy PowerPoint slides on a screen. Like, you want a story tell. And so content is incredibly important. And AI has allowed us to kind of democratize access to what is almost agency quality work product at approachable prices. And so I think content, theming, and just the talent in the room to run it, like the Broadway production, these things have become. Like, it is a real theatrical production. All of that is now what you're looking for your production company to be able to do. And so, it's kind of, AV on steroids in terms of all of the other opportunities to create a more impactful experience. And that's certainly where we pointed Encore.
Sounds like to me that Encore is more than just a producing business, company meetings. You might be doing Taylor Swift concerts, things like that. I mean, why not?
Sure, we're ready to be on that stage yet. But look, I mean, some of these companies, you think of some of the things that are happening in Las Vegas, some of these big, great convention hotels. Their CEO gets on stage. It feels
right. It does.
Taylor Swift concert.
I don't know, Ben. You look like you're ready to go out on tour.
my daughter would be mortified.
Well, there you go. Maybe she can go with you. She can show you around. So we're like 10 minutes into this conversation, and there was an over/under I had on whether you'd bring up. Someone would say the P word, pandemic, but you did it. Yeah. I think you made it to the over, actually. But that's kind of like, everyone kind of doesn't really want to talk about what happened during COVID, but there were such shifts that came in the wake of it. And, meetings and events, they've continued to evolve in lasting ways over the last several years. And you kind of touched on it just now, but are there, like, from your vantage point across kind of the global markets, what permanent shifts have you observed in group business, and how should, bringing it back to the hotel industry, which is kind of what we write about from a content perspective, how should hotel leaders rethink kind of their event strategy as a result of everything that's happened over the past, several years?
Yeah. Look, it's certainly, I think, continues to shape where attendees' mindsets are. I think, the first one we've talked about it, like, we have all gotten very used to using Zoom and Teams for certain interactions, certain meetings, where this feels like a suitable replacement for being in the room. We've seen that, for some of the smaller meetings that may not need the same or have the same demand as they had kind of before the pandemic. But you've seen just this explosion in, kind of more frequent touch points for what we would characterize as kind of medium and larger meetings. And I think so you've seen, like, the demand mix shift. I think, that's kind of point one. The second is, like, just around, one of the things we got really good at in the pandemic is doing everything just in time.
Mm-hmm.
We were reacting to a world that seemed to be changing overnight. And so, to be as customer oriented as, Encore wanted to be, as all the hotels wanted to be, you were letting decisions wait much later than kind of we had maybe had prior to the pandemic. Yeah. Unfortunately, because we built that capability, you're still seeing things happen much later than normal. And so I think you've got this world that, from an event perspective, seemingly you're redesigning events a week out from them loading in. You're waiting for, kind of customers to make decisions till much closer to these
Wow.
events. All of that acceleration puts stress on the system. I don't think
Sure.
it's going back. Like, I think, good news for hotel industry, we've proven we can react in real time. Bad news, it puts stress on our teams. And so
Yeah.
you kind of have to build the business for that.
That's a lot of compression. I mean, it's kind of similar to the hotel industry where people are booking hotel rooms now. The booking windows is narrowed. Everything is kind of like, at the seat of their pants, 24 hours, 48 hours out. It's crazy.
It is. And even on the group side, and I know we get, for the biggest events, you're looking, years out.
Yeah.
For so much of that, like in the quarter, for the quarter, in the month, for the month, drop in business, we have trained customers, like we will be ready to react that
Yeah.
quickly. And I think also for them, like they're still in a world. I mean, look at the headlines today as we're, kind of filming this, like it remains fluid, economic environment. And so I think you also have customers that, hesitating on decisions builds flexibility in for them. And so I do think it's a period that, it's just going to have to be a little more agile, and you're going to have to build your businesses to, respond to that.
It's certainly fluid. I could give you a snapshot of my IRA and show you how fluid it's been. Let me ask you this: staying on kind of the idea of partnering with hotels, maybe talk about ensuring kind of mutual beneficial success. I mean, we talked about the meeting planner, and then working with the hotel, and kind of it's almost like a triangle. The meeting planner, you have the hotel, you have Encore coming in.
Yeah.
How does that all kind of relationship work, and maybe some best practices in doing so?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think the first point that I'd make is Encore is incredibly focused on what we're building, accruing to the benefit of our hotel partners and our customers alike. And so, when I sit and talk about and celebrate our team's innovations of new technologies, new solutions, having the industry's largest kind of end-to-end product mix, like it's all because I want to make life simple for that planner. They can get everything from Encore. And I want to add value to the hotel partner. Like I want them to know they've got somebody in their building that can, sell more to their customers than anyone else. I also want to make sure that growth we've enjoyed allows us to build a workforce that's best positioned to deliver for customers and venue partners. And so when I think about our team members today, we're investing a ton into training and development, retention, so that you're going to deliver better customer experiences. And that, scale we enjoy should help with that. We can put the exact right technical talent in a room to deliver for a customer. That should give the customer peace of mind. It should also make sure that, from a hotel partner perspective, they know they've got somebody that's as focused on customer service as their team members are. And like, we want to live their hospitality spirit.
Yeah.
And so, when I think about balancing those two, like, I think everything we're doing is very focused on delivering for our customers, and those same things are going to deliver for our hotel partner. And it's why, I hope more people have confidence in having Encore as part of their team. But it is, for us, a simpler equation. Like the same things that a customer's looking for is exactly what our hotel partners are hoping we deliver for them.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head talking about how important talent is now, especially, I can almost merge two questions together talking about, I mean, there's just like talking about the pandemic as kind of one of those keywords. AI is such a huge kind of component to everything nowadays. But you're saying, you guys are really nurturing the next leaders in kind of in this area. Maybe talk about a little bit about how you are nurturing talent at Encore and how that talent breeds success in the meetings and events business overall.
Yeah. Look, one of the things, that I've been very focused on since I got the CEO job in the middle of 2020 was around making talent a competitive differentiator for Encore. And so what that meant was taking a company that had always been very focused on its team members, but making culture and, Encore being a great place to work core to our strategy. Day one, when I got this job and talked to our company, I said that was going to be one of the three things I was focused on. And so I think it is competing on having a company that talent's attracted to, the talent can develop their careers at, that they feel a connection to the purpose of what we're doing. Encore is very focused on how we can connect and inspire people. And I think that higher calling is what you're seeing in today's team member base.
Yeah.
We celebrated last year being named one of Fortune's 100 best companies to work for. We finished last year with turnover at the lowest level it's been in a decade. And I think those things are related because we're investing in their careers. Like, we've been very focused on how we can use, gamification, badging, certification. How do we attract today's newer generation workforce where, hopefully they enjoy their job today, but they want to see where it's going, right? They want to see how can they get promoted? How can they make more money for the work that they enjoy? How can they shape their careers? And maybe it's a little more impatient than it was when I was starting my career. But I don't think it's any less hungry in terms of just how can they advance. And so we've been very focused on making sure that the talent that we have in our business is there to deliver for customers and our hotel partners. I feel great about where it is today, but it's certainly that continues to evolve. And I think AI, and you mentioned it in the question, like, it's a force multiplier for our team members. So we're using it in how we manage customer data so that our team members have on their devices all of the history of that customer. So that hotel can have confidence that, like, we're not showing up and introducing ourselves to somebody that's been there the year before, or somebody who maybe had been at an Encore hotel somewhere else. How do we give them that personalization? How do we use technology to help that come to life? It's all around delivering better service. And I do think AI and tech can be really important. You're not going to replace the humans in a services business. You can make those humans better.
That's a great point. And by the way, as a Gen Xer, I know that the Gen Zs, the millennials, and I think what's the one after that? Like my nephew, the Alpha generation. I don't even know anymore.
No,
I know it's a
starting over.
Yeah, we're starting over. It's a different cohorts for sure. I mean, there's psychographs different like that, but I know that, bringing in different age group, different ages, whether it's Gen Z, millennials, it's a different kind of workforce now.
And it's changing fast. I mean, we have gone from, kind of the generation of baby boomers and Gen X to, like, very quickly the workforce having 3 or 4 generations overlapping, and the growth is coming quickly with the younger workers. And so you better be reshaping your businesses for it.
Sure. Let me ask you this. We talked a lot about themes, which is fantastic. I always love to get kind of like a little bit of down in the nitty gritty on the ground kind of look. So can you share maybe an anecdote, a story where kind of Encore may have had to overcome a specific challenge to deliver on a great event? It's always great to hear some of these stories in action.
Yeah, look, I laugh a little bit because there are stories every day of what teams are being asked to do to deliver for customers, and I'm sure anybody listening to this, like, you can think of your hotel or your company and you've got one. Like, we're an industry made up of people who see challenges as something they can overcome, and if you're in a live events business, you get those curveballs all the time. I was at one of our great hotels partners properties last week down in South Florida. They were just coming off an event for a big financial services company. So a lot of the banks love spending February in March in South Florida to get out of New York for reasons that are well understood. And we had a customer who unfortunately had planned for their event to be outside on a beach under a tent. The weather last week in Florida did not cooperate. So our teams literally woke up to a panicked planner wanting to move, about a 750 person, highly produced event that was set up outside into a ballroom. And so, over literally 4 hours, you're breaking down and striking, kind of an outdoor activation to turn the same thing on inside. And, it's all hands on deck. And certainly the Encore team one of the benefits for the property is like we rallied all of our team members in South Florida to come
Yeah.
help. So kind of the APB to get here and do it. But the partnership with the hotel, where you had members of the catering team, helping us push our cases into the ballroom to get it all set
Right.
up, so that when attendees showed up
Yeah.
at noon for the start, it looked like it was always intended to be in that space. I
Amazing.
love hearing all the great stories that went into it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that was a great, easy day
Yeah.
to be a team member, but certainly a sense of satisfaction when
Yeah.
you look at the smile on a customer's face and you see the power of like Encore being able to rally resources, but also just like how close we work with our hotels, where when need strikes, everyone's willing to raise their hand to help.
It's like, it sounds to me like a great grounds crew at a baseball stadium,
Yeah,
The
you're exactly
when
right.
weather comes, they have to
Yeah,
keep that field right. Yeah, that's
So-
exactly what really my last question for you is kind of looking, I guess, getting out that crystal ball. How would you handicap the future of events, and
Yeah.
placing Encore within that context? But what do you see it? How do you see them evolving? I mean, we've seen them change over time. Is there going to be a huge evolution in events in the next several years, or what does that look like to you?
Look, we're obviously living in a world where, I think technology continues to be disruptive. I think the future for events is incredibly strong. There was a quote Mark Cuban had earlier this year where he referenced the impact of AI on events as our Milli Vanilli moment, where for all of you listening who are old enough to remember who Milli Vanilli is, right?
Yeah.
This idea that like in a world where we're being served, auto-generated digital content, events are going to have an opportunity to be a source of truth, something that is authentic and real. And so I think you're going to continue to see events serve a really unique purpose in our personal lives and professional lives. And so when I think about, hotels and event space, customers using events as important moments, Encore's ability to be a partner in that, like I think all of that's going to be more important in the next 5 years than it has been in the last 5 years. I do think they're going to get more complicated. I do think you're going to see technology evolve. I think AI is going to change the expectations for what events are and how you're delivering, personalized experiences, content capture and translation in real time, all these powerful things. But you're going to need people together. They're going to want to sit and see each other. And so I think what you are going to look for in the next couple of years is just continue momentum around event volumes, but you're going to see more complexity, the speed probably ramp up. And so what we're focused on building Encore for is how can we make sure that our technology and our capability and really our team members are built for a world that's going to need more of what we do, but are going to have higher expectations for how we do it.
Well, you know what? I love ending a conversation on 80s pop, or maybe it's 90s, Milli Vanilli. I can't even remember now.
Yeah,
I kind of like pushed that way back into my recesses.
Exactly. That was definitely back in high school for me.
They had some hits. It just weren't really their hits, or they weren't really singing it. But that's okay.
Exactly.
Okay, Ben, this has been such a great conversation, kind of learning more about the event business. If people want to learn more about Encore and your company, they can go to encoreglobal.com to learn more about everything you guys do. So Ben, I appreciate you coming from Chicago. You're in Chicago now. Hopefully you go to a Cubs game soon enough when the weather gets nice.
Yeah, when it gets nice. I'm not sure I'm going to be as patient as it takes in Chicago to wait for the weather to get nice to go see a game at Wrigley. But I'll bundle up. It'll be fun to see baseball start.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Ben, and great speaking to you about the event business and about what Encore is doing. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.